Welcome back to the Get Mental podcast. It's your host, Dave Matthews here with your boys, Soul, Cole, Brandon Coleman. Brandon, where's this podcast find you?
Man, I'm in my hometown in Maryland, Prince George's County. So thanks for having me on the show, Dave.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I appreciate you being here. For those of you that don't know, Brandon Coleman, or is most commonly known as or referred to now as Soul, Cole is a retired NFL player from the New Orleans Saints. After suffering a career-ending injury, and we're going to get into all this, in 2018, he transitioned into health and wellness space, becoming a certified health and wellness coach. You can currently find him as Soul Cole, a flow facilitator, mental performance coach, breathwork certified, sound work practitioner, all of that great stuff. High faith, family value, morality. But we're going to get into all of his background, all the good things that he's done in the community, but also kind of his history and kind of where he's come from and in all the things surrounding his journey from there. So, Colt, man, great to have you on the podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Yeah, man, let's dive into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. So, first things first, I think back as far as history is concerned, as you were coming up, I kind of want to go back and talk to me about your early childhood development, also into high school sport and your transition there. When did you find out that the football was going to be your passion?
So taking it back to my roots, I knew football and basketball, to be honest, was, that double-headed sports, as far as path was concerned. And, as middle school, got into high school, I was just all year round, right? AAU tournaments, 7-on-7 tournaments. It was a nonstop thing, and I was passionate about both sports. And it wasn't until high school that, going into my junior year, that it really started to separate itself when, I looked up and I had double-digit amount of Division I offers in football. And, I had like maybe 3 or 4 D1 AA or D2 basketball offers. And I was just kind of like weighing my options there. And, the realization came down to it when my senior year, and I realized, all right, this is what I'm going to do, is choose football. And I looked at, from a realistic standpoint, I'm 6'6". I was playing out of position in basketball. I was playing, center, right?
Wow.
Just because I was just one of the tallest guys on the team. But if, realistically, I should have been a 2 or 3 in basketball, right? 6'6" is not very tall in the basketball world, but, on the football field, 6'6" is extremely tall. And all I could think about in comparison was, a Kobe Bryant, RIP, or Michael Jordan. They're 6'6", and I just knew like my skill set, hadn't been developed enough to play at that level, outside of a 4 or 5, and on the basketball court. But in football, I'm looking at, Calvin Johnson was the prototype, coming out of Georgia Tech, same body build, frame. I'm just thinking, I got more of a chance if I follow this path and separate myself. And so that's what really came down to it, making that choice. But I love playing both, but it was one of the tough decisions to have to let basketball go, and put my focus on football.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. A lot of people that are kind of in the similar position with the same build, same skill level, etc., kind of dip into both. Myself personally, I absolutely love basketball. Love football too when I played it. At the same time, I know that like individuals deal with pressure from maybe parents, pressure from inside, outside, other pressures like that. As you were going through the process of maybe even eliminating a sport like basketball, going into football, making that decision or choice, but also deciding where you're going to go to school. A lot of people that listen to this podcast are kind of college athletes or maybe high school athletes that are getting recruited right now. And I know that the recruitment process has changed a lot. Obviously, you've got NIL deals and stuff like that. They're popping off now. And again, social media maybe at its time when we were coming up, it was there, but it was not nearly to the extent that it is now. Just talk to me about your experience in dealing with the pressures of just different voices in your family, voices in your head, and going through that. What was that journey like for you?
I was very grateful to have, my parents be a pivotal part in the process, in the recruiting process for me. Like, they were present. They, vetted all the agents. They vetted all the scouts. They vetted everybody, every coach that wanted to, come talk. They had to go through my parents first before, and get their approval before they got to even talk to me.
Yeah.
And I say agents because it was the same process when I left college to go to the NFL. So it was like, we've been through this before. So I know a lot of people don't have that, support system, but I was fortunate enough to have that early on and stay with me throughout that, my career. So it took a lot of the pressure off because I didn't have to do it by myself, and I didn't have to worry about, people that I couldn't trust or misguiding me that didn't have my best intention. So that, just allowed me to just, uh, make a better decision. And ultimately, I made the best decision for me at that time, choosing Rutgers University. And the reason why I chose it, I had, narrowed down those, deciding factors to location, education, and competition level. Location being it wasn't too far away from home, being, less than 4 hour drive. The train, I can also take the train, and then, but it was far enough to where I could be on my own, right? And um, education, Rutgers University is, a world-renowned brand when you talk about, you know, academia. And so I knew that a degree from there would also set me up as far as business world goes. Because honestly, I didn't go into college thinking about the NFL.
Yeah.
And so I went into it thinking like, yo, the real world's going to happen after this. How can I leverage this piece of paper with this block R on it and help me, further advance in whatever I chose to do. And then competition, right? At that time, Rutgers was in the Big East, and I've always been an underdog, had that mentality. And so I wanted to help build the underdog program up, and they were on the up and coming, and we were able to compete the years that I was there, and then leaving um, leaving school early because we were moving conferences like left and right because everything was starting to shift around that time, and then going into my redshirt senior year, they were moving to the Big Ten, and I was like,
Yeah.
all right, yeah, I made a business decision, for the trajectory of the university. I get it. Um, so I'm gonna make a business decision for myself, and I'm gonna into the draft, and because I knew the competition was no longer, we were no longer able to compete, especially the first year, right?
Yeah.
You need recruits, and we just didn't have the talent level as a receiver. It's only so much you can do if a Joey Bosa gets to the quarterback in 2 seconds. Then there's only so much you could do. So, I that was, my process.
Yeah, no, that completely makes sense, and the thought process there is eloquently said as well as clear. I guess like as we transition into nowadays, I guess what's your take on some of the things that are kind of going on now within the recruitment process, or even
Man.
people entering the portal? Obviously
Oh,
conferences are getting mixed up. Yeah, I guess what are some of your just raw thoughts on that and advice to athletes that are navigating that?
number one, I'm grateful. I'm grateful I didn't play college football in this era, in the NIL era, in the transfer portal era, in um, And I'm glad like I was on that last tailwind before everything started shit, before all the conferences started to, do this merge. Oregon does not have any reason to be in the Big Ten, right? Like it's stuff like that. Like I'm just like, all right, what are we doing here? Everybody's chasing, a dollar sign, and I get it. I'm just glad I didn't. Like, some of my old teammates say like, man, I would have made this amount in this era for sure. Of course, right? I was on a billboard on the New Jersey Turnpike while I was in college. That's an NIL deal for sure, right? Missed opportunity, okay, but I'm not losing sleep over it at all, because now what I realize how much stress and anxiety is that comes with that, the pressure, the financial pressure, because all this misguided information about all this upfront money, large a large amounts of money. Some are making more than professional athletes, already, and how that's going to start to change and shift the dynamic if that's the path they do want to take to go professional. Um, and then even the transfer portal. I think the transfer portal is probably doing the most harm to these athletes. Um, and this is my opinion. It's taken away. It's pros and cons to everything, right? Let me say that. But I feel like it's taken away that grit that you develop from being able to compete. If they bring another 5-star player in your position, like, and if you just go get a senior or a junior, from another school, bring him in with more experience. Now, if you're an incoming freshman who they said that you were going, they don't need to play. They want somebody with experience right now that can, already pick up. So that shifts everything. The whole culture has been shifted. And so I'm glad I missed that wave. And so my advice, for athletes that are in that position now, hey, definitely is a lot of pros to it, right? So don't allow, I didn't experience it the way that you are. So I would just say, lock in on what it is that you want in the big picture. Lock in on your why for playing, the sport, your why for why you chose the school to begin with. And if it was faulty to begin with, if you did it for, surface level reasons, then that's just a lesson, a lifelong lesson that you're going to have to, that was there to teach you, right? If you went chasing after, a coach because the coach, promised you X, Y, and Z, and you realized, that coach ended up taking a bigger contract 2 years later somewhere else, that you realize that that's just the nature of the beast. Like, well, you have to do what's best for you. And as you got to realize that you are a brand. Social media is a tool for you to help build your brand. Like you said, when we were in that era from, I was from 2010 to 2014, social media wasn't as powerful of a tool as it is now, right? Um, and then even for me, I was very, you know, introverted. So I wasn't open to putting myself out there on social media at that time, and still even struggle with that to an extent. But it's definitely a way for you to leverage it. I just don't want to see athletes get caught up in the storm, get caught up in this whirlwind because they don't have any root, they don't have any foundation to hold on to, that they just blowing with the wind anytime a team goes over here, or this dollar sign get thrown at you on this deal over here. Like, they don't have a moral compass. They flip flop in schools, on social media, and not even having decency to call and, and speak with. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
it's a different generation.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. And like as I hear you break that down, some things are coming up for me. One, and maybe you would agree with this too. I mean, the research would, but don't let that skew you. As far as like the, and we know this, people that are listening to, between that age group of 18 to 22, a lot of moral development is occurring, a lot of value solidification within our
Right,
mindset and our
right.
North Star and what that kind of means to us. And when you say like blowing with the wind, I mean, there are so many options out there that I don't think that you have had to, and I don't want to speak to your experience. You can speak to that as best as you can. But for what I'm assuming is that you didn't have as many options. Like
Yeah,
once you were solidified and you picked that school, you picked your school. And I
yeah,
think that like it's almost a, because of just one stroke of the pen, it seems that like, oh, I made a mistake. I don't want to go to that school. One of my favorite programs is University of Michigan, and I know that their individuals are flopping from Ohio State to Michigan, Michigan to Ohio State. That's a
my
big
goodness,
rivalry, right?
my
And
goodness.
and I think within that too, one of the things that you pointed out that I don't want to overstate, but I also don't want to let go understated.
Yeah.
There is this like trophy generation, right? In this instant gratification age. And if
Hmm.
you are blowing with the wind, I think that there are some opportunities where, to your point, if I was promised to be, a 5-star recruit starting my freshman year, whatever it is, hey, redshirt freshman, come into my freshman year, you're going to be the
Hmm.
starting quarterback. Oh, well, I left as the coach or things are changing because of portal, somebody entered in. You're thinking about transferring, right? Whereas in maybe some of the grit and resilience that you may develop throughout your career
That's
may
what I'm
happen if you
saying.
stayed
That's what I'm
and
saying.
you didn't
You're
have
missing out
that
on that.
opportunity while others did. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Man, you that's the main thing I feel like is this generation of athletes are missing out on developing grit because they had these options and for lack of a better term, they're taking the easy way out because they don't have to sit out from transfer. They don't have to sit out a year from transfer. And so if they can go and transfer and play that next year, they're looking at it as, oh, bet. It's not setting me back. However, they are missing the the development of that grit that is a key attribute and not just in sports but in life because you know what? Life is going to hit you in the mouth at some point. And it's not only going to happen once. It might happen twice. It might happen 5, 6, 7 times, right? But if you don't know what it's like to get hit, fall down, and get back up, and then go through it again, and then go through it, like if you don't know what that's like and develop that callus, then we doing this generation a disservice because when hard times do come and those challenges, circumstances do come uh when those moments arise, you're gonna fold. I folded, for example, like when life hit me. Now I've had tests before, but my version when I say I folded was fast forward to my NFL career, and now I'm transitioning out of it because I had neck surgery and hip surgery back to back months. Now I'm thinking physically, oh, this is just physical rehab. I can will myself back to play because I've developed this level of grit, not knowing that I've suppressed years of emotional trauma, mental trauma, and now that has all now come to the surface, boiling up on top of compounding the physical trauma that is now I'm experiencing. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any tools that I could go to. I didn't want to drown myself in painkillers and in a glass bottle, right? I saw where that path got you, and I was like, I don't want to do that. But like, something's got to give. I don't know. I don't have emotional intelligence was not even in my vocabulary. So therapy was still taboo. The stigma was like, nah, we don't do that around here. So what else you gonna do? For me, I folded. Like I crashed. Like they say, crash out now. Like it was bad for me. You know, it got dark for me. What happens when it gets dark for you? You know what I'm saying? So like you really have to lean on these moments and look at them and assess them, you know, from a bird's eye view and see like how is all this connected? It may not make sense, but there's a bigger picture. There is something there. This is happening for a reason. This is not happening to you. It's happening for you.
Okay. That's powerful. And again, like coming from the generation that, and that's such a powerful testimony because the generation that you grew up in, going to Rutgers, having that be your only choice. And correct me if I'm wrong, undrafted free agent
Yeah.
into the Saints, having to grind your way, will your way to where you were. That's grit, that's resilience, and that's some of the things that maybe the NIL, the transfer portal, things like that aren't giving athletes, and you still
why, not to cut you up, but the reason why I was able to do that and get to the undrafted and go to the practice squad, and then because at Rutgers I redshirted my freshman year. Now I didn't go in like thinking that I'm redshirt. I'm going competing, ready to play the true freshman. Now I got 3 roommates. We all in the quad. 2 of them played my position. The other one was a starting quarterback. So it's 3 receivers in a row and the quarterback. All 3 of them are true freshmen. I'm the only one that redshirted. So on away games, they travel. I'm waiting in the room back on campus, waiting for them to come back, watching them play on TV. Mentally, I'm just like, damn, like I should be out there, or I gotta wait. These my boys, these my partners, but at the same time, I'm feeling away because I got that competitive nature in me. But that grit that I developed in that year prepared. I didn't know what I was going through, but that prepared me for. Fast forward 4 years later, now I go undrafted. Now I'm on the practice squad. I remember I said, "Oh, I know what this is like. This is like a red shirt year." I said, I've been through this, so now let me proceed accordingly because I've had this experience and now it's just now it's just elevated, right? And so now that's how I was able to use my experience from college. But most people are skipping out on that, right? And I'm not saying every situation you should stay. Don't get me wrong, right? Like that was just for me.
Yeah, totally. And I think that like some of the thing, and I want to get back to obviously the injury and all that good stuff too. But one of the things that you're saying is this mental fortitude that you created, and for a lot of people that are listening, and for yourself personally, this is just a journey of the soul, the mind, solidifying some values, solidifying some beliefs, but having to watch your teammates. You didn't plan on redshirting. You ended up getting the red shirt. I got to go watch them, my teammates, my boys, my housemates. They live with me, right? To come back and then brag about the game, you may be feeling some type of way or whatever that is. If you could create a mental strategy, map, guide, what would that look like for an individual that may be in that situation right now? I'm also thinking about major injuries, ACL, MCL, Achilles, all that good stuff. Like if you were to set up or work with an athlete one-on-one from a mental performance perspective, what would that look like? What would you outline as the start?
First, we gotta address your emotions. Like we gotta be able to name whatever emotion is that you are experiencing, whether it's frustration, whether it's embarrassment. Like we gotta be able to call out the elephant in the room out the gate, because if we aren't able to do that, then we're not going to get anywhere. But if I'm working with a athlete one-on-one in that situation, be it they've suffered a season-ending injury and there's a medical red shirt, or there was just a regular red shirt, I'm working with them and just assessing them with where they are at this moment. Like some people might be like, you know what, this actually works for me. I'm actually cool. I wasn't ready to play, or school is kicking my butt. This workload is kicking my butt. I don't know if I would have even been able to handle it. So let's assess where you are, and then build build out a custom plan that we can work toward developing and strengthening that resilience and that grit and that foundation um, for you to hold on to when those times do come, when they do arise. And it could look different for different people, but I feel like the first thing is like, where are you in this present moment? My thing is meeting you where you are at that time. For me, if I'm talking to my younger self at that time, meeting me where I wasn't open-minded to hearing this conversation, right? uh but I do think that I would have been a little bit more curious if I saw someone that looked like me, that came from where I came from, that representation and relatability factor was present. Then I would have been a little bit more curious to hear what they had to say, right? Especially if they played at the highest level, right? And I think that's what's missing. So level setting, meeting, that student athlete, the scholar athlete, where they are, understanding, what it is that they're experiencing and being able to label it. Then from there, I think we could, like I said, build out a plan on how we can, mentally attack this circumstance.
Yeah, yeah, I'd love that, and I think there's so much power in emotions. A couple of things you said. One of them is just the emotional aspect of it. Just being able to name and have a language that is wide at scale surrounding my emotion or my emotional vocabulary. Being able to increase that is so monumentally important for you to understand how you feel. I mean, that's some of the part of why journaling is important, why meditation and mindfulness, we'll get to this in a second, but just recapping how I'm feeling, both physically, emotionally, and mentally, and noticing that with, and we'll get to this certainly, non judgmental awareness. And I think as athletes, individuals who are perfectionists, high achievement oriented individuals, we tend to judge our thoughts and feelings. I shouldn't be feeling that way.
Mm-hmm.
Or don't be jealous of these individuals, right? How do I find gratitude in this moment? Or do I flip the switch and turn on that Kobe switch or that Michael Jordan switch and say, hey, I'm going to become not vengeful towards them, but vengeful towards my circumstance. If I ever feel this way again, this is going to be fuel for the fire. And I think while all that is good, I also definitely think to life in general, there will be monumental limitations to that. I guess as you take a look at stock or inventory of the fuel to your fire and how it pushed you, there were probably some positive or negatives to that fuel, that motivation. Can you pinpoint, like, from in your experience, what that was like? Because I mean, you had to have so much fire and motivation to come undrafted free agent, to come from redshirt and all that stuff. You used it in obviously a positive way, but I can sense that maybe there are some negative ramifications to that. I'd love to chat through that if that's okay.
So the negative ramifications of that fuel, it it developed that inner voice, that inner critic, and in a way that voice that I in the beginning I did not have control over the volume. I didn't know that I could control the volume of that voice. It was just so loud. And then when the negative, critique would come, or the judgment, as we could say, would start punishing myself and not giving myself credit or not giving myself, grace. That was probably the toughest thing, because like you said, the perfectionists, the elite, uh, high performing athletes or individuals, they put that amount of pressure on themselves and forget what grace is. Don't even know how to spell it. And for me, it was that was the most challenging thing that I had to overcome, going through developing that callus of, being red shirted, and being hard on myself, doubting my skill sets, ready to quit, like, and then giving myself grace for not being drafted. I was embarrassed. Like, it was just like, man, I felt like I let not just myself down, but I let my family down, my high school down, my college down. Like put all this added pressure on myself, and I didn't know that I could give myself grace for that moment. Um, but that's so important because that's a healthy mechanism that you can use to help you move through what it is that you're feeling. Like, yo, you are worthy of grace. Don't beat yourself up because the enemy is already doing that enough. You don't need anybody else, hating on you, right? Show yourself some love, show yourself some grace, and that, I was able to once I became aware of that, once that awareness started to come, to the surface, then that's when my relationship with self and self-love and self-care, all of that started to take a spin of 180.
Yeah, man. Self-compassion is something that I feel individuals don't hold enough of. I remember when I just came across some self-compassion meditations during some of my practices as an individual who's still, recovering perfectionist, high performing individual. I mean, it never goes away.
Right.
You just manage it. I thought this was the most. I'm going to be honest. I thought it was soft. I wasn't hearing it. I didn't want it. And then
Right.
as I dove a little bit more into it, you're right. Some people just can't spell grace, right? And what that means or what that looks like for us. As myself, I idolized Michael Jordan. I idolized, the individuals like Tiger Woods, or these mindsets of these individuals to
Right.
strive, and but also to push myself and have that inner critic. And it's interesting to hear from you that inner critic was so loud that when you started to gain awareness towards the maladaptive voice in your head, that then you started to realize and question, right? First, before you can control, I think that there's question and openness. And is there ever control? I mean, that's a philosophical question right there, but understanding that, hey, this is here, allowing that to be, and then saying, you know what, I think I might want to turn this down a little bit. That's a pretty powerful moment.
Yeah, I think for me, I had to understand. I was working with a therapist, and they helped me point out that it's a relationship. And once you recognize that, you can start to have a conversation. People say it's weird to talk to yourself. I talk to myself often. Okay, like it is okay for me. Like I don't have no shame in saying that, but understanding that you can, once you build a relationship with somebody, so they encouraged me to actually name my inner voice, right? And so that was an exercise that I thought was stupid at the beginning, but I came back the next week and I was like, all right, I got a name, Mr. Doubtfire, right? And so the intention behind that was Mrs. Doubtfire, obviously it's a classic movie, but the twofold is doubt and fire. How much doubt that inner critic was actually speaking to me, and saying I'm not capable of this, or I'm not worthy. You didn't get drafted because you just not good enough, or you were redshirted because you just not ready. But the other side of that coin is it would light that fire underneath of me and make me want to prove that voice wrong. And externally, any the naysayers, the reporters, the coaches, the scouts, peers, whatever it was, like. So that was me now identifying this voice with the relationship, understanding we can have this conversation, but understanding who was in control is at the core of it is myself. And so now all I gotta do, I just literally had to figure out like, yo, I have the remote control. I can turn it down, right? And that's an exercise visually that you can start to do in your mind and practice over time. You just got to become aware of that. And for me, it helped building a relationship and giving it a name.
For anybody listening, I mean, that's game right there. Like,
Yeah.
and that's an awesome title too, because you're right. I mean, it's both things. It's doubt and fire, right?
Right.
It's doubt for myself, and that's eroding a lot of my self-efficacy. Is sometimes what fancy term for self-confidence is what we call
Right.
it. Eroding some of the confidence, listening to some of the naysayers, which again, easier said than done. A lot of people say don't listen to hate, don't listen to what people say. It still is entering your thought process, your mind, consciously, subconsciously. You're still weighing out, and it may
Don't
dictate
get
some
on
of your
social
behavior.
media and see what these people that never played a sport are talking about.
Right. Honestly. And then it's also giving you that fire too. And I think that it comes with both. And a lot of the times these things enter our minds as good things, right? Mr.
Hmm.
Doubtfire.
Hmm.
But then they start getting into areas in which they start to be highly counterproductive, as though is a
Hmm.
word I like to use, right? Surrounding that, because it can be productive and counterproductive in the same way. Mr. Doubtfire, that's awesome. I'm gonna have to bring that back. That's awesome.
Hey man, listen, whatever. Hopefully that it helps just one person listening.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely love that. As you transition into the NFL, some of the things that I want to know are, I mean, look, we get the outsider perspective, and again, don't listen to the naysayers, or, and maybe you had great coaches, great teammates, things of that nature for the people that you played with, but mentally, what was the most challenging aspect of the NFL, and I guess how did you navigate those challenges from a mental standpoint? And again, maybe this is before or during the injury also that you sustained, which I definitely want to get to as well.
I think the most challenging part of navigating the NFL was when I realized that it was no longer a game that I fell in love with as a kid. And what I mean by that is the NFL is $1 billion corporation. And once I started, and as an undrafted free agent, coming in on the bottom of the totem pole, I got a chance and worked my way up to a starter position, in the beginning of year 4. So I got a chance to see the politics, the business, the in a way that it was really disheartening to see, like, the inner child inside of me that fell in love with this game when I was 6. I was really like, he was really disappointed to see what it really was all cut out to be, like, when he got into it to experience it for himself. And that was hard, navigating, trying to play politics and like, on one side of it, play the game. Like, I got, like, you got to play the game. I get it, but at the same time, I did want to conform. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I wasn't a rebel and trying to, disrespect, guidelines and rules and everything. But it's just one of those things that, like, yo, I'm not going to. Once I started to, get into, like, more of who I am evolving into, who I'm becoming, like, my personality. Nah, I wasn't trying to conform, but it was harder because for me to have, like, to say how I really felt, because I wasn't a number 1 draft pick, and I wasn't a franchise player, or I wasn't that, that a household name that I could leverage that, and nah. So I was just like, yeah, this ain't gonna work out for me too much longer anyways, to be honest.
No, I got you. As far as like, I mean, to the extent to which you're willing, what do you mean as far as politics are concerned? Just for those listening, I think I understand what you're saying, but
Yeah, so I mean, it's one of those things, like, uh there's an in politics, there's always an agenda,
mm,
right? The people that make the decisions, the owner, the GM, uh, the head coaches, the people that actually, like, are behind the scenes, that, the names that you don't know, like, they're responsible for, more or less, who is actually on the field when it's time, like, when it's game time.
yeah,
And once you start seeing, things like that, or reps going down from people that are perfectly healthy, or or vice versa, it's just like, damn, like, this isn't this isn't fun. Like, I don't, like, I really wanted to be fun. Like, I really wanted to focus on that part, but then during the week, you hear reporters and making comments, and, Alec, things of that nature coming up that are outside of your control, right? I can get it if things are inside of your control, like, that you have a part to play in. But if it's outside of your control and then you realizing it's up in that air, the politics, it's just like, what are we doing?
Yeah, right. And it's one of those. I mean, come on, you're telling me Roger Goodell, he's not a good guy?
Hey, listen, like I didn't say that.
I know I said
You know what I'm saying? I didn't say it. I can neither confirm nor deny. I don't know the man personally.
fair enough. No, I didn't want to. Tongue in cheek, man. That was a joke. It was a
Yeah,
superfluous
yeah,
joke. I
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
looking for no
I
bait
got
there.
you.
No, but look, I mean, you hear these things. We hear these things. I think as people, individuals. My cousin played for the NFL. Like I'm understanding, and just from an outsider's perspective, but also like I think there's enough hearsay to kind of understand some of the politics that are going on. And it is
Yeah,
disheartening. And I think from, yourself personally as an athlete, that adds to the mental stress, anguish, some of the things that are going on in there. How did you, I guess, overcome that? And again, it's easy to say, don't listen to it, just block
yeah.
it out. But I'm fishing for more of like, for you personally, what were just some mental routines, things that you figured out that worked for you? Maybe it's not going to work for everybody, but what was your experience like?
To be honest, I wish that I had this level of awareness when it comes to like mindfulness while I was actually in the NFL. I wish that I could say that I would, take some time to do some breathing exercises to help reset my nervous system. And no, that just wasn't the case for me. Like for me, I would I would just really just unplug and find like, go retreat to my safe space and create that, boundaries, right? That's one thing that I always was strong and adamant about was creating boundaries for myself. And what by that I mean, like I'm not allowing, to take anything out of the facility back to my career. Now, granted, I didn't have a wife and kids, right? Like some of my teammates did, like they who have to like actually like flip the switch or at least make an attempt to not to bring that energy home or take that energy to work, vice versa. Like, but I think for me, I would definitely set up boundaries for myself. Like when I did get off, like yo, I'm unplugging, like I'm chilling, like this isn't. I need to find something else to pour in, like something else that I can like pour into. Now I was never like a video game guy. Like I wouldn't lock myself in the man cave and play Call of Duty, to 3 in the morning. Like that just never was my thing. But I definitely would, make sure I spend some time and like even before I knew what grounding was, I was always, going to kick it out in nature, right? Finding like in New Orleans, I stayed not too far from Lake Pontchartrain, so I would go kick it by the lake and just post up sometime and just watch the sunset or just just look at the water, man, because that was relaxing for me. So or just the type of music that I started listening to. Like I grew up on, old school smooth jazz, R&B, uh, Marvin Gaye, Al Green, Earth, Wind and Fire, like Stevie Wonder, like that era. Like, so I would just, I knew that music could calm my soul and help regulate my emotions before I knew that that was technically sound therapy, but that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, no, totally. And I want to get into that too as we transition, but it seems like you consciously or unconsciously were engaging in activities that were going to fill your bucket, fill your spirit, fill your soul, and kind of distance you from some of the things that you were dealing with. Now, I know that there's an interesting contrast, right? Because you brought up video games, so I have to kind of say this, like escapism and what is introspection that is going to fuel you. And I'm not putting down video games at all, but I think that there are other activities that we could get into while you're doing this soul searching, and a lot of it is coping, right? And it's coping
Yeah,
mechanisms. And for you personally, it's being in nature and
yeah,
being intuitive with your body, saying, "Hey, this feels right. This feels good.
yeah,
This kind of music that I'm listening to, this feels right. This feels good. This is filling my spirit, filling my soul." But it took some introspection, is what it sounds like for me,
oh
from
yeah,
hearing you kind of talk about that. in order for you to access those aspects of yourself.
Yeah, and that takes courage. It takes a willingness. It takes, being comfortable, being uncomfortable, right? Spending time actually looking in the mirror and making eye contact with yourself. Not just going through the motions, like not just glazing at, the surface level. Like, no, actually look into the window of your soul and and just find out what's deep down inside you, right? Intuitively, unconsciously, I knew at that time, like, all those things were help guiding me to this point. It was like, yo, we gotta, I'm being guided to be reminded that these are the things, that these are the tools that I've, another lifetime, like I've already been exposed to. Now I just gotta help myself figure out how to get back to it, so that I can advance, into this to the next level, as a video game, if we want to keep that same scenario. And I'm not like yourself, I'm not knocking down video games, but I do see how, that as a habit can be a form of escapism and deflection that doesn't allow for the real work to get done. Like I say, like, you can't duck that work forever. Like, you got to step up to the plate and really look yourself in the mirror and find out, who you are.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean that's a perfect transition into there was a moment in time in which you that happened for you, and I mean happened for you as in it was, and I don't know if you would categorize this as a gift or not, but there was a time in which you got injured, suffered or sustained. I think it was a hip injury and a neck injury, and that led you to kind of a lot more of this work and this introspection. Take me back to that moment. Talk to me about, I guess, we've already alluded to this a little bit, the injury that happened,
Right.
and also how that led you to these transformative moments and practices within your life, including therapy, and seeking mental health, mental fitness resources as well.
Yeah. So at that moment, I was down bad. I couldn't walk. I'm on crutches and I couldn't turn my neck. So that was literally my lowest moment, my version of rock bottom, I tell people. And I was like, man, like, all right. But I always knew from a spiritual point of view that anytime that, because I had surgery on my knee in college, so anytime that I'm actually being sat down, it's for a reason. So I knew that it was God getting my undivided attention to communicate with me, because otherwise I wasn't listening. And so he needed to, remove all distractions and get my undivided attention and remind me, that I can't do this all by myself. And so, you know, I had to let my pride go and ask for help. And, and that was hard to do, right? Um, but in that space, I'm like, all right, there has to be something more to this. And remember earlier I told you, like, the relationship and communication. Well, there's two sides of communication. There's talking and then there's listening. Me growing up in my faith, I was always taught to pray, and that was always talking, right? But I never learned how to listen um, to God when He talked back. So when I got introduced to meditation through J. Cole, who was on a podcast, similar, similar to how we talking about, he just casually just, talked about how meditation is a tool for him. He doesn't practice every day, but it is something that's helped him manage his anxiety and, when he gets on stage or before he does anything, big, right? So I'm thinking to myself, like, damn, like, I'm curious now. I don't know nothing about it, but he planted that seed in 2018, and I went looked down that rabbit hole, and now it has manifested into this essentially, because I was open minded, because I was curious, because I was at my lowest point. I'm thinking to myself, like, man, something else has to give, but I was missing the duality of the communication dynamic, being learning how to listen and learn and introspection, going within to be able to listen to, my divine intuition that was going to help me, guide me through this situation and remind me that I'm not alone. So it was one of those things where I was like, okay, this is a game changer for me. And now how can I help others, for it to be a game changer for them?
Mm, that's powerful, especially the listening part of it, because I think that you're spot on. And I grew up in the faith as well. My
Yeah.
grandfather was a pastor. My
Okay.
dad, very much in the faith. I grew up in the faith. A lot of it is talking, and maybe without faith, just for those who are listening, maybe it would be as akin to self affirmations for some
Right.
people,
Right.
right? It's a lot of talking to ourselves about things that are going on, whatever it is. But that listening part is so, so, so critical. And a lot of us, there are things that get in the way. And I want to ask you, what are some things that got in your way of listening to yourself?
My own self, to be honest, like not to be funny, but like, it sounds cliche. It's like, yo, the only person that's standing in your way is you. And I was, and the only reason I say that is because the mindset that I had, the mentality that I had, like I was skeptical. I was hesitant, and putting that energy out there was really blocking my blessing from receiving what I needed to receive on a higher level. And but it wasn't until that shift happened that I created space to receive what I needed to receive. But I had, in order to do that, I had to become still. I had to become silent. And that's also uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for people to sit in silence. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've been challenging myself to do that more often. This last year, I did, my first 10-day Vipassana meditation and just sitting in silence, for those 10 days. And I actually took 2 bonus days to transition because I knew, I needed like to ease myself getting back into society before I, decided to speak again. But that's something that, helps me, practice getting out of my own way, because I'm my toughest critic. I'm the only one that's stopping me. And once you realize that, it's like, how can you now work with yourself and give yourself grace, in the midst of turmoil, in the midst of struggles, in the midst of, tragedy, pain, whatever it may be.
Yeah, and man, that's just a powerful testimony, because I think that there are a lot of voices in our head when we get quiet,
Mm-hmm.
and that vipassana meditation that you're talking about, or just being silent for 10 days, so many things start to come up and unearth themselves, and it's uneasy and it's hard.
Yeah, you
It's
want to run
really
from it.
and
You
exactly.
want to run from it. But if you don't develop that grit, if you don't develop that resilience to sit and like for lack of a better word, sit through that shit and allow it to be, and just, feel what you need to feel, right? But understanding that those feelings too shall pass, that's the practice, right? Things will come to the surface, but they will also pass on. That's just how energy works.
Yeah, yeah. And just for those listening that may have not have gone through this, I think some of the things that have come up, I'll speak from my experience, was the self judgment, and also this like dichotomy between what in the spirit you call the flesh and
Mm-hmm.
the non-flesh, or the spirit. What I mean by that is, you know what's good for you. Let me give you an analogy. I want Doritos, but I know that eating blueberries would be so much more healthy for me, right? But you're like, well, I'm gonna go get some Doritos, right? As you're like, that it's this thing called cognitive dissonance, right? That's in psychology, which is there are two conflicting beliefs, and they're going to come to a head and they're going to hit, and one is going to win out over the other with your behavior, and you may suppress, and you know that this thing is good for you or whatever it is, but you're going to choose that other thing as well. That's kind of some of the things that may come up during these silent meditations, or when you get introspective. There'll be conflicting voices, and to unwind them, to understand where they come from. Are they coming from social media? Are they coming from your childhood, your values, some of the beliefs that you feel? Are they your thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
Are they your beliefs?
Biggest one. That's the biggest one.
Those are tough to decipher and differentiate. And it's until you get silent and sit that you really start to understand, oh, wait, these are not my thought. This is what the world is expecting of me, or what, my best friend or my dad or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And you got to really get quiet to understand and decipher that. And that's where the real work starts. And that's scary.
Yeah, it is. That is. But for me, it's like I'm at a point now where I want to lean into that because I know that's where the transformation happens.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that you're advocating right now. I want to kind of transition into some of the things that you're doing currently.
Yeah.
And you're advocating for mental health, mental fitness, specifically within athletics, but I mean, more generally speaking, and in the Black communities as well.
Mhm.
I do have before I kind of give that intro, I do have a question surrounding that. Like, what challenges have you faced in advocating for mental health, mental fitness, wellness, etc., in both athletic and Black communities? Because I understand that we do need more of this, and I'm very much in agreement with that. And how have you overcome some of those barriers?
I think the biggest thing that I've experienced as a challenge is um, the lack of the lack from the community or athletics recognizing that this is a priority. Mental health is a priority. Mental fitness is a priority. The reason why I say that is, if, for example, like if I want to introduce, a workshop in, at a school or something like that, they there'll be more if they don't have the buy-in from the decision makers.
Hmm.
There'll be more to put this on the back burner because it's not a priority, because it's not a core value. They don't they don't recognize it as a necessity, right? And the truth of the matter is we are in a mental health crisis. We and it has nothing, like, it doesn't matter what your race is. It doesn't matter what part of the world you was born in. It doesn't matter what your age is. It doesn't matter what your sexuality is. None of those factors matter, right? And so everybody is experiencing, you know, mental health. Um, it's crisis right now, man. Like it's just that's just what it is. It's across the board. But the fact that we don't make it a priority with with ourselves and our households and our workplaces, like, and then it just gets put on the back burner. So now I got to do a lot more advocating to convince you to think that this is actually worth investing in, or this is actually worth just not allocating just 5 minutes for a mindfulness moment. And like, no, we need to sit down for about 45 minutes, like, and really like get into it. Like, don't shortchange this. Don't take the shortcut out, because we repeating these same cycles. And for me, it's just like, I recognize that, being, like I said, again, meeting you where you are, not being judgmental. That's the challenging part for me, because it's like, all right, I want to work with you, but you gotta help me help you though. Like, I'm also not going to force myself to convince you that this is what you need, right? I'm past that point for me, like in my career and where I'm at now. Like, if you already aren't, you know, at least open-minded, okay, cool. I just, like, I'm not going to waste my time trying to, give you a spiel on why this is important if you already don't know that.
I'm 100% with you. And it's also akin to athletics as well. Like, as a coach, they got love for you, but at the same time, they're not going to run your sprints for you. Right? They're not going to catch the ball for you. They're not going to do, you know what I mean? So as I think about that, to your last point, the coachability factor in that, I think that is of the utmost importance that we realize and understand that, hey, I can only take you so far. You have to have some of the willingness and openness to be able to
Yeah,
receive and accept some of these messages.
always.
Yeah, 100%. I think that, like, as we as you transition to the things you're doing, and I've seen a lot of the good stuff that you're doing on your website as well as on other social medias on LinkedIn. Tap some other people in, and what is the soul system look like, the soul ecosystem look like, and what are some of the things that are next for you?
Man, I'm excited to to scale as far as just not just brand exposure, as far as getting the soul system out to whether it's corporations that have the value that are aligned, or athletic programs that have the similar values as I see mindfulness, as I see it mindfulness goals. But I break that down into three categories, or three pillars rather. And that first one being flow facilitation, which is really just me tapping into my superpowers and meeting you where you are. And that is another way for saying a discovery session, right? Finding out what your pain points are and being able to, like I said, meet you where you are and figure out where it is you're trying to go, and then now we work ourselves backwards. And that next step is in soul excavation, right? Getting beyond the surface level. We gotta dig some stuff up, right? And we gotta get down to not even the substance level. We gotta get down to the soul level, and that's the soul level of your organization, right? The soul level of what it is that your core values are at the core, and being able to figure out like what needs to get uprooted, what needs to stay, and then let's build on this foundation. And then as you build on this foundation, we add on sustainable growth, and the key word for me is sustainable. Just because when I'm no longer there, like I want you to be able to continue this work on your own. Like I don't want to give you the fish. Like I want to help you, show you where you should place your rod at in the water, like understanding the current of the water. Like this is the time of the day, like you can best find these types of fish. Or like I want to help give you the tools and the information so that it can be sustainable when I'm no longer with you. So just being able to plant these seeds and help you water them, and for it to grow, and giving you that harmony that you desire in all areas of your life.
That's awesome. I love the three pillars. I've been on the website. I've kind of looked at some of the things that you're creating,
Right.
as well as like wellness, but also like meditation and mindfulness opportunities
Yeah.
within that, which I think are super powerful. And I also love personally the advocation for the Black voice
Mm-hmm.
within these spaces, because I think it's absolutely paramount that we start to, and the stigma is already being broken, but to
Yeah.
continue pushing the envelope there, because there's still so much more work to do. I mean, you look at LeBron James on the Calm app, Simone
Yeah.
Biles with some of the things that she's been doing, but also to understand that there's still more work to be done, and that if we
Oh,
can touch individuals that are close to us or over the phone or whatever it is, social
yeah.
media, like I mean the sky's the limit between this and beyond.
Yeah. So when I first got into this space, when I was first exposed to it, like speaking into the representation of the Black voice on a mainstream level. It was hard to find a voice that sounded familiar, that resonated with me, um, and that was stressful, because I was like, man, I know it's something here. A lot of people are talking about it left and right. You know, it's ancient. It's been around. It didn't just pop up 20 years ago, right? It's been around for thousands of generations. So let's, let me continue to dive into this a little bit more. But me recognizing that I have a platform, me recognizing that I actually have a voice that people enjoy listening to, um, and I was like, you know what? I want to use my voice in a way that can help really reset people's nervous systems, right? I have a voice that's calming and soothing that people just, don't mind listening to, and they feel relaxed. They feel calm when they spend time, when they spend time around me, when they spend time listening to me, whatever the case may be. And so recognizing that that is a superpower, but being able to do that in a cool way, like I say, like I just want to make mindfulness cool. So putting out a project called Affirmations and Ad Libs, right? We familiar with that in the culture, the term ad libs with Young Jeezy, or Amigos even. So um, Well, then meditation mixtape, volume one. We know countless artists who drop mixtapes left and right out the trunk of their car, like, and push it. And I was doing that the same way. So I wanted that to be able to reach the culture in an authentic way. And then even with, with the youth, with the kids, and through, my umbrella, through my nonprofit, Soul Impact, being able to pour back into them in a way with the cartoon character superhero I generated, Mighty Soul, and offering those tools, whether it's affirmations coloring book for kids, or whether it's mindful flashcards or posters. And then I'm even getting ready to release his first book, Mighty Soul Adventures: Journey to Emotional Mastery, here in the next couple of weeks. So stay on the lookout for that, man. And it's just raising the vibration, that we all need, and is all rooted in love.
I love that, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I think it can make a really big impact, definitely in schools, charter systems, private schools, not even about public, like elementary, middle school. It doesn't matter. I think that
Across
there's
the board.
so exactly across the board that there's so many avenues that could go down. I'm definitely looking forward to the nonprofit, and I gotta shout out the ad libs. What'd you call that again? The mindful.
Aff- Affirmations and ad libs. No, I'm not your average. Daily practice, build habits. I'm so charismatic with the flow acrobatic, so cold automatic. Don't sleep, don't panic. Make a wish like magic. 1111 times stamp it. I just dropped my first classic. I'm a savage. You can have it. Gone. You asked for that. I didn't.
Hey,
You asked for that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Just for all those who listening, he asked for that.
I did. I did. I was begging for it, man. Because my next question was going to be, what's your favorite ad lib? And you already, hey, I'm not even going to ask. Like, I'm not even going to ask.
Yeah, it could. To be honest, it varies. But for me, it's always my favorite ad lib now is.
Love it. I love that. I love that. Man, we gotta get you hooked up in the app,
Yeah,
or trapping out of the back of the car, whatever it is, whatever it
we're gonna
takes,
make it happen.
honestly.
We're gonna make
Yeah.
it happen.
Let's make it happen, because I think that there are so many opportunities for individuals too. And you're completely correct. I think it's the tone, rate of speech,
Mm.
volume, all of those good things that like are teachable, but also the qualities that you have as an individual would definitely resonate with some individuals
They used to
that
tell
with
me
some
in
headphones
sports.
on.
They used to tell me in sports. They say height not coachable. You can't coach
Yeah.
height. you
Can't.
know, you can't coach height. So it's like it's some attributes that I know that I possess on this side of it that you you can't coach either.
Mhm. No, most definitely. And I think again, using those gifts, those talents that God gave you, the creator,
Yeah,
whomever, the person that or entity, whatever you believe in, the people that are listening, I know what I believe, you know what you
for sure,
believe.
for sure.
Um use those, right? Because that's the gift that he gave you for this art. So man, I absolutely love it. This has been awesome. It really
Thank you,
has.
man.
Are you ready for the lightning round? And then we'll kind of close it out.
Let's run it.
All right, let's do it. So the first question I have for you would be it's a question I usually ask individuals at the top of the hour. But I'm going to ask you, and I kind of already know the answer, but I'm going to be surprised, be open, not judgmental. What are the three most powerful mental skills that you see either within yourself or athletes or just people in general? And again, we're talking about skills. If you were to pick three, and I know that there's so many under the sun, what are the three for you?
Lightning rounds, focus, um, visualization, and discipline. I think for me, those would be my three. And like you could choose so many, right? But um, those three stick out for me.
Yeah. So again, focus, visualization, and discipline. Um, there's a really good book called Discipline is Destiny by
Mm,
Ryan Holiday. I
mm,
very much like that. Just shout out Ryan. That was an amazing book that he wrote on discipline. The power of visualization is absolutely enormous. There are
mm.
so many studies on visualization that actually like make my skin crawl. I mean, I get goosebumps just thinking about some of these studies on visualization because they're so good. And then focus. I mean, mindfulness, meditation, focus. Those are keys right there.
Yeah,
Keys. What's your favorite food?
now that I mainly eat plant-based, to be honest, I love a good grain bowl, like
Yeah,
some ancient grain, whether it's quinoa or farro, but like throw in all the, even some greens like, some spinach or some kale or some arugula, but mix all the veggies in there, man. Give me some good sauce. Like, I'm a good grain bowl guy.
I love that. I love that. I'm gonna have to check out the Grand Bowl. When you're in LA, let me know. I'll take you to Erewhon, where we get like.
Oh, I've been there. Yeah,
Have
yeah.
you? Yeah.
I'm already knowing.
All right, he's already on. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, bring your pocketbook because I'm not paying. I'll tell
Oh,
you that right now.
yeah, yeah. I know it. I know it. That's more than Trader Joe's and Whole Foods combined.
Seriously. Next question. When you're, and this is, yeah, let's spit it. When you're frustrated, annoyed, you feel that sort of like temperature start to rise. What do you do?
I asked for a moment. Like,
Hmm.
give me like, whether it's with like somebody else or it's with myself, I gotta go take a moment.
Hmm.
Like I need space, preferably fresh air. Um, that way I can like really start to like breathe. But but 6, 7 years ago, before I even knew about that, nah, I would go. I would definitely go still take a walk, but I wouldn't be conscious about my thoughts or my breathing. But now I definitely got to just get some fresh air for sure, and just slow my breathing down. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I love that. As a matter of fact, that's funny that you answered it that way because the way that I was going to ask was, what
I
would you
could
do
tell.
back in the day?
Yeah, I could
Yeah, what
tell.
would you do now? I love that. Hey, that's a
Yeah.
level of emotional intelligence that you're on. Because you're completely right, and I think that it was a book that I was reading said between the stimulus and the response there is a gap, and the
Mm-hmm.
wider that you can create that gap,
Mm-hmm.
you can intentionally
Is that
act
Victor
with
Frankl?
purpose. It is man's search for
Uh-huh.
meaning.
Yeah.
I can't get around you. Last question. What's the underestimated part of your routine, if you have one?
This is for all those, if you stayed to listen this whole podcast, this is worth the whole thing right here. My gratitude practice. That is the most underestimated uh, key to my success, key to my peace, key to my harmony, is reminding myself of what I am grateful for, down to the littlest thing of, um, you know, having healthy limbs, having healthy organs, or a roof over my head, or clothes on my back, or um, you know the smallest of things, right? Both my parents I have, like, in my life, like whatever that is for you, just finding something to be grateful for every day will start to, wow, really heal yourself, right? Because gratitude um, is an energy, it's a vibration. So once you start practicing, you know, um, expressing gratitude, writing it down, whatever it is. Some people do gratitude jars and mason jars, and they just put all these gratitude stuff in their jar, and then at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, they'll open it up and reread them, right, and reflect on what it is. I think that's beautiful because it now raises your vibration, and it starts to attract more things to be grateful for, right? You started like, man, somebody just gave me a compliment. It was a complete stranger in the store. Like, wow, thank you. And you can just honestly receive that and feel that. So for me, yes, that's it right there. Gratitude, man.
Wow. Yeah, I if you have made it this far, I absolutely love that. I think that that's one of the keys to success is gratitude. A lot of good books, a lot of good research on gratitude,
Yeah.
and it definitely raises your vibration. There were some studies surrounding gratitude within, I think it was individuals with heart arrhythmia,
Mm-hmm.
and it allows the heart to beat at a different frequency. Like when you talk about vibrations and frequency, I think, and maybe this is my disposition, but a lot of people think woo woo. A lot of people think
Mm-hmm.
like, all
Mm-hmm.
these different things and, crystals and stones. And I'm not too far away from Venice Beach. I get it.
Yeah, I
But
get
at
it.
the same time, when you really do dive in and you look at it, You will
Can't
be
deny that.
very surprised.
You can't deny that, man. I went down that rabbit hole of research with gratitude, and not only did I, take the research for what it says, I went and practice it.
Mm.
Like, so 2018, 2019 is when I first started my like gratitude practice. And so I was practicing gratitude for months before the pandemic happened, before quarantine happened. So then when that happened, I'm still going through finding things to be grateful for in quarantine, during the pandemic. Now we're at 2025. I can go back and look at those journals and look at those notes in my phone and be like, wow, bro, you got a whole book full of, like, this is your story of what were intentional about being grateful for in the midst of suffering, in the midst of chaos, right? And now how that redirected your whole vibration to now you're on this path, right? All of that I had to figure it out for myself. I had to put it into practice, application, right? So faith without works is dead.
Exactly. Right. Which like, and I'm so glad that you actually did that, because it's one of the things that I think that a lot of people will think of. They'll hear on podcasts. A lot of people say these things, right? We know
Right.
them. But if you actually, and that's the one thing that you said that like I need to double click on: intentionality.
That's it, man.
To be intentional surrounding some of the things that you're doing. And look, January 1st just happened. I don't know when this podcast is going to air, but January 1st just happened. A lot of people did New Year's resolutions.
Mm-hmm.
I can't sit here and say that I love New Year's resolutions, but I also can't say that I hate them either, because they allow you the space to be intentional. And maybe it is a nice time to reflect on what that intention means. Now, going through with that, sticking with that, is a different thing. But at least it allows you the space to be as intentional as you can.
That's my word for the year. I got two of them: intentional and transformation.
Mm.
And so just really locking in on that. I do have now in this stage in my life, I feel a way about New Year's resolution. And I think it has more so to do with me tapping into nature's new year and realizing like spring is really the new year, and especially in the northern hemisphere, is being able to just like, yo, we're supposed to go with, like, we're supposed to be in alignment with nature. So if nature's in winter, we should also still be reflecting and doing, introspective hibernation, whatever you want to call it. But then in the springs when we blossom and really get to put in, everything that we planted in our harvest. Like, so it's just shifting that mindset for me has been, so I still get a chance to reflect, but I don't take it as serious as I did, like, 10 years ago.
I absolutely, I love that too. But it's one of the things that, as you kind of reflect on the movement of bears, of nature,
That's what
there
I'm
is a
saying.
hibernation period, right? Where you actually go underground. And this rise and grind 365, 24-hour David Goggins culture, sorry to name drop David, like I have ultimate respect for David. But at the same time, I think that there is a period of rest. There is a period of growth. There's a
Mm-hmm.
period of reflection. Well, reflection kind of happens all the time, but I think that for myself personally, there was a moment in time where I was like, well, I got to get up. I got to grind 5 a.m. Why aren't you working? There is a time to
There's a
to
time and
rest.
a place. There's always a time and a place.
Yeah, and if you allow that to
Absolutely.
occur, then that's the best self actualization. That's the fertile ground for it to occur.
Find what works for you, right? What works for you might be different from what works for me, but you know, I think, like I said, nature is a beautiful teacher for
Mm.
that, and to help remind us of that, the way that it breaks down seasons. So, and it's been helpful for me. Last year, I did my first hibernation, for three and a half months, and I came back in the spring, and I was like, oh yeah, I like this. This is I'm gonna need to incorporate this into, as I continue to evolve.
I love that. I might have to incorporate that myself, and I'm glad that you're not on hibernation for this podcast. I appreciate
Yeah,
having it on.
yeah. This time around, I decided to stay in town for the family, but I think it might do a every other year thing. So you got me at the right time.
Timing is perfect. So is his. Well, thank you for coming on. Shout out to people listening. Where can they find you?
My website is soulcodethebrand.com. My nonprofit is Soul Impact soulcolefoundation.org on all streaming platforms. Soul Cole, all caps, 2 words, SOULCOLE. And yeah, man, just tap in, tune in to the vibrations. So thank you for allowing me to be a guest, and I look forward to continue to build a relationship with you, brother.
Same here, man. Thank you for coming on the podcast. I'll have all of that in the link in the description wherever you're listening to this, whether that's YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify, wherever you're finding this podcast episode. I will have a link to all of Soul Cole's, formerly known as Brandon Coleman, all of his good resources. Reach out, follow him on Instagram, Twitter, all of that good stuff, and stay in touch. Cole, Soul, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right, my brother. We'll talk soon.